There's a quote by Terence McKenna regarding the end of the world, and it says, "The idea of the end of the world always amuses me. Maybe the world will end, and maybe it won't. But have you ever noticed the end of your world is an absolute certainty? And you're going to go into the yawning grave, and rather soon, I should suspect. And possibly sooner than you're prepared for." So, with no further ado, I'd like to bring up one of my good friends, Mr. Mark Passio. Give it up. Welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank
Great
you.
to be here.
Thanks for being here, man. I appreciate it. So, for those of you that don't know, Mark is a lot of things. Can we all agree on that? Okay. He's not a reptile. Shut up. Relax. Mark is an independent researcher. Mark, along with Fernando Salguero, is an assistant organizer of Truth, Freedom, Prosperity. Mark is also a monthly movie host. All right? If you guys don't know this, Truth, Freedom, Prosperity hosts monthly documentaries, and they're always free. And at the end of it, we always hold a discussion regarding whatever the topic was. So that's one of the things that Mark does. He's also the host of What on Earth is Happening podcast, which does research and investigation into the nature of our shared reality. Mark says that he takes people on a journey of self-exploration, examining human consciousness and the way it relates to the universal problems which we currently face as a species. What do you mean by that, brother?
Well, the problem that we're all in, which is basically we've created a prison for ourselves here on Earth. People aren't free. There's an illusion of freedom on the surface, but really we're basically kept as chattel property. Whether anybody wants to admit that or not, that's the truth. And in order to really reverse that situation, we need self-knowledge. We need deep knowledge of how the human psyche operates and how we are collectively creating the reality that we experience. And what I try to do is help people to understand these fundamental underlying principles that if we understand, we are empowered to create a better reality for ourselves. And if we remain in ignorance of them, we're going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into bondage.
I agree. And so do they. Keeping in line with the synergy of tonight, the band Culture Reel is here. And, give it up for Culture Reel. Culture Reel is a reggae band, and one of the first things that I think of when I think of reggae is for better or for worse, is Bob Marley. And one of his most famous quotes is, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery." Now, you specifically talk a really great deal about mental slavery. So,
sure.
Two questions is what does that term mean to you, and how do you think that people can emancipate themselves from mental slavery?
Well, the world is under mind control. It's a big part of what I talk about is the methodologies of mind control. You need to understand how this chess game is played. It's a war on the mind that is being waged against humanity. And the reason that they want to control the mind is because it's too difficult with a small group of people to control the bodies of people directly, to directly control people's actions. You have to convince them, you have to control their perception of themselves and of reality, and you have to convince them that you have some type of moral right to do what you're doing to control them. Okay, people need to be convinced that they have some kind of a moral obligation to obey their enslavers, when in fact no such moral obligation exists. See, people need to come out of the mind control that there is such a thing as authority in humanity, in human form. There is no such thing. This is a pure, illusory construct that only exists in a diseased psyche. There are no masters and slaves. There are only claims of mastery against other people that someone owns somebody else and can tell them what they may or may not do so long as they are not harming another person. But they have people convinced that this is real. They have people convinced in their mind, and they're buying into this fundamentally flawed axiom that has absolutely nothing to do with reality and has absolutely nothing to do with the natural world. And that's the only way that they can continue to maintain this power and control that they have over the human species. They have to maintain control over the mind. And by any other name that you call that perception management, I call it what it really is. It's mind control.
That's an interesting take, perception management, because that's really what it's been. And you know, in light of what happened last Friday up in Connecticut, I mean, you know, regardless of where the whole story is and all that sort of thing, there really is there is a perception that's been handed down to us. Same thing happened with 9/11. Same thing happened with just about every tragic event that's happened, and there has been a perception that's been given. And it seems like with the 9/11 issue, it seems like nobody questioned, even if the country was attacked by whoever was claimed to have attacked it. It seems like there was nobody questioned the idea of, well, why did this happen, other than well they just hate us for our freedom. And that was like the message that was just drilled and drilled and drilled. In my opinion, especially, you know, I want to keep in line with this idea of, you know, today's this big shift in consciousness. But I really do see that. I think that we're in the middle of this consciousness shift. In all the experience that I've been and talking to people and being out in the street and all my interactions, which is why I have you here on this date. I mean, you know, when Underground Arts gave me the date for TFP Live, they said, I'm sorry, but the only night we have is December 21st, 2012. I was like, what, are you freaking kidding me? Of course, this is the perfect night for what we want to do. You know, don't apologize at all. Of all the people that I thought of to have as a guest, my gut reaction was Mark Passio. I called Fernando. I said, who's the first person you could think of? And he said, Mark Passio. And when I talked, you know, so you just came, like, you know, at the forefront of this because of a lot of things that you talk about. Now, I think that while you go out in the street, or especially with the holidays coming up, you go and you talk to your family, it's very easy to get discouraged because it's very easy to hear people talk about all this crap that just doesn't matter. Essentially, it's like you're out there talking to the Walking Dead. And I hate to use a zombie metaphor, but just, you know, for all intents and purposes, I'll, you know, say, you know, we're out there and it seems like you end up talking to these zombies that care about, you know, all this nonsense that just is irrelevant. Personally, I see a lot more and more people waking up. So you've been doing this for 20-some years, correct? Better part of 20 years?
No, I would say about, 15, well, yeah, almost 20 now, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
we'll round up. Is that cool? Guys, we're going to round up, all right? 15, 20 years. Whatever, it's been a long time. And in my experience, just in the past 5 years of really, like, drilling this and talking to people, I personally see a shift. I see a lot more people waking up. I see a lot more people, coming out of the closet to talk about this kind of things. What about you? I mean, do you see a shift? And if not, well, even if you do you see anything that can kind of push it along?
Well, I want to be honest about this. I do see that there is small movements being made toward understanding the things that we really do need to understand, like the principles of self-ownership and the non-aggression principle. There are more people who are coming online to the truth, but I would say that we haven't reached a quantum shift number by any stretch of the imagination. See, there needs to be a certain amount, a critical mass or a quantum number that is reached. In the Latin language, the word quanta means an amount. That's why it is called a quantum shift in consciousness. I don't believe we're anywhere near that critical mass number. I think we have fallen very short of that. But I think we are making small strides into waking small core groups of people up to the principles of self-ownership and non-aggression. And really what I see it as is there's only two kinds of people in the world. There are people who are supporters of the aggression and violence ideology. And I don't call that a principle or a philosophy because it is not. Philosophy by its definition means the love of wisdom. And the support of aggression and violence has nothing to do whatsoever with wisdom. It's leading us down a horrible path that we're all going to experience negative consequences as a result of believing in that fundamentally flawed ideology. if we don't pull back and say no to it. But the other group of people are people who are really waking up to, again, the non-aggression principle, the idea that it is immoral. It is not moral to initiate force against someone else if force wasn't being initiated against your will to begin with. So you should not ever initiate aggression or force against someone else. That's called violence, and no one has a right to do that. That's what all forms of government is, violence. Whether anybody has truly woken up to that and understands it deeply in their mind and their heart is actually irrelevant. That's what it is. The truth of it is that it is violence. It just needs to be seen as such by people. It needs to be accurately perceived as such. And that's what this whole process is actually about. This transformation in consciousness is about coming from the flawed fundamental axiom, the belief system that people are attached to, okay, that they are under mind control to believe in, of the acceptance of the aggression ideology or the violence ideology called government over to the principles of self-ownership and non-aggression, which is the truth. That's what this shift is actually about. The numbers are still very small, but again, groups like this, we can help to people make that transition. Hopefully we can do it in a way that doesn't require force itself. But if the bringers of violence continue to ingress upon our inherent natural rights, at some point when there is no other recourse, I am also not a pacifist. You know, I fully live and embrace the non-aggression principle of life. But that doesn't make me a pacifist. I understand that we also, hand in hand with the non-aggression principle, we have the inherent right to self-defense when our natural rights are being ingressed against. So while I would say that I am a person who is filled with peace and will always extend the non-aggression principle to everyone I engage reality with, I am not a pacifist in any way, and I believe very strongly in maintaining at all times the inherent human right to defend ourselves with force, if necessary, when violence is being conducted against us.
Yes. Absolutely. Briefly, before I get into this last portion of just talking to you, is do you think that? What do you think would be the best step for someone? Because I'd like to believe that most of this audience and most of the people watching this kind of already get that. So I don't think, if we're just preaching to the choir, do you think that there's anything specifically that you could tell people to share with someone else that may not think this way?
I would say that the power of words is always something that I try to impress upon people. And, you started the interview with a quote by Terence McKenna, and he said that the world is made of words. And if we know the words that the world is made of, then we can make of it whatever we wish. And this is very powerful, because when people ask me how mind control was actually conducted, how do people actually become manipulated to doing the bidding of their own masters, of the people who are actually dominating this world through violence, I tell them that mind control largely works through the power of words, through the vibratory energy of the language that we speak. People do not understand what words mean, and they have the meaning and the power of words have been obfuscated in their minds. Let me give you a brief example. If you do a simple sociological experiment with people and you ask them, you do word association with them. Everyone has played this at some time or another in their life. Somebody shoots out a word or a phrase, and you say, please respond with the first word that comes to your mind. So, you give people a slip of paper, and on it you write the words, no masters, no rulers. You just write those words down on a piece of paper and you hand it to somebody and you say, I want you to write on the flip side of that piece of paper one word that you would associate with that phrase. No masters, no rulers. And almost 100% of the people are going to write on the back of that little slip of paper the word freedom. Almost 100%. And they would be correct. That is the state of freedom, having no masters and no rulers. No one is over you. You are all born with the same rights. You live with the same rights. You will die with the same rights. And those rights do not come from man. They are not given to us by any man, group of men or women, any group of people on the face of the earth. Okay, they are inherent to our being. They are a birthright of us existing in the cosmos. Okay, and regardless of what you may think of as that creative force that put this whole great game of consciousness into motion, whatever you want to call that force, that's what put those rights here with us, not any man or group of men. Now, that having been said, you continue with this same sociological experiment, and you give people a second slip of paper with the word anarchy written on it. And invariably, those who really do not understand words and their true meanings almost invariably will write the word chaos down on that piece of paper, when the actual root meaning of the word anarchy is derived from the Greek language. The prefix in Greek, a or an, simply means the absence of, okay, or not present, not there. And then the word archon in Greek, which is where the second part of the word anarchy comes from, the word archon means ruler or master. So you put them together. Archon, anarchy, means the absence of rulers, the absence of masters. It does not mean the absence of rules, as in the absence of any higher law or moral law in the cosmos. It simply means the absence of rulers or the absence of masters. And they just told you that that means freedom. But yet, they'll write down a completely contradictory meaning when you give them the word anarchy. And this is because that's how mind control works, through words, through the obfuscation of words and language, into getting people to believe that words mean something other than what they actually mean. And this is why the study of language, linguistics, the study of ancient languages is so discouraged. Even phonics is so discouraged in the upbringing of our youth, whereas once it was actually put forward in the educational system. If we don't understand the true meaning of words, we will accept any meaning that is given to us by people who want to control us. We need to understand what the words that we're using on a daily basis really mean, because that's how our perceptions are controlled. The word anarchy means no rulers, no masters. It is the true state of humanity. You're already in it, whether you know it or not. The question is, do we really understand that is the true natural state? Or are we going to stay attached to these completely flawed ideological axioms that are based in violence? Anarchy is what freedom is, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about any increment or amount of government. All government is violence. All government is the coercion of free will and the elimination of free will choices in people's lives. I suggest to people, if you're going to go down the path of truth, go all the way and don't make any apologies about it. If you know that you are in the moral right, go all the way and be unapologetic about speaking that truth out into the world for other people.
Truth. That's right. So, yeah. Now, you talk about this obviously on a weekly basis, every Sunday live from 5 to 7. You can go to whatonearthishappening.com and you can listen to his radio show. Everything's archived on iTunes and everywhere else on the internet.
135 podcasts to date. They're all archived right up on the website, all for free, all downloadable in MP3 format to load on your digital devices. Yep.
Awesome. Another big project that you're working on, which is the second, the Free Your Mind conference.
That's right.
Okay, and you can go to freeyourmindconference.com to find out more. But it was last spring, right? Not just this past, but the spring before you did the first.
2011 was
2011,
the first
Mark held the Free Your Mind conference and completely paid for it all out of pocket. He had people fly in. He had Dwight D. Eisenhower's granddaughter there, Laura Eisenhower.
To be fair, I did not pay for it out of pocket. Michael Falsetta was very instrumental in making the Free Your Mind 1 conference happen, and is also a very instrumental benefactor toward putting on the second Free Your Mind conference. If it was actually not for Michael, the first Free Your Mind conference would not have happened.
Huge shout out to Mike Falsetta. You know, it's amazing how there's like so many unsung heroes in this quote unquote movement, but he's definitely one of them.
Absolutely.
But so you have the next one coming up in April,
That's
and
right.
it's Free Your Mind Conference too. So
Yep.
talk to us a little bit about that. Why'd you do that?
Free Your Mind 2 is an event that attempts to bring together whistleblowers from all over the country and talk about the dynamics of human consciousness, its manipulation, occult forces that are being worked with and that are working upon us in our world, and really to talk about mind control and how to get out of it. And we're bringing together whistleblowers from all over the United States, gathering them all together in one place for 3 days at the end of April, coming up in 2013. And they're just going to all speak from direct first-hand experience on topics that they have tremendous knowledge and expertise on. And this is going to be taking place at a beautiful historical landmark here in Philadelphia, the Arch Street Meeting House, the Quaker Meeting House on 4th and Arch in the historic district, just a couple of blocks away from Independence Hall. So this is going to be taking place on April 25th through 27th, a 3-day event. It's called Free Your Mind 2, a conference on consciousness, mind control, and the occult at the Arch Street Meeting House. To attend for all 3 days, we're trying to make it as affordable as possible for people. There's going to be 25 speakers at this event from all over the country. We're bringing in Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, who speak very rarely. We're going to have Bob Tuskin from Florida coming in. We're going to have Jim Fetzer, Larkin Rose, Laura Eisenhower will be back. Freeman, a lot of people are familiar with Freeman Fly, he'll be here. Frater X, Jan Irvin, I'll be speaking. We have so many great people coming out. We just confirmed yesterday, Fritz Springmeier is also going to be at Free Your Mind too. He's coming out to speak, so it's going to be a phenomenal event. Everybody should check it out and be there. freeyourmindconference.com. You can get more speaker bios, and you can get more ticketing information at freeyourmindconference.com.
Awesome. Well, there's a million reasons to give you, all kinds of props and shout-outs and blah, blah, blah. But this specifically, thank you so much for putting this together. Because I know the amount of work that goes into organizing something, and this is a 3-day event right here in Philly. For you folks that are here, that are close by, you're lucky that you have this, right in your backyard. And honestly, you have Mark to thank for it, to be able to put this together. And it's, believe me, you'll walk away with, you'll definitely walk away with your eyes a little bit wider. And it's open to whoever, so bring whoever. And if I know Mark, he's got a stack of flyers at least this big here to give out to you guys. So is that true?
They're on my chair right there.
They're right there on his chair. See, I know Mark well enough. It's hard not to. Mark's a great guy. So, hello. All right, good. I almost started singing. So obviously, the Free Your Mind Conference, whatonearthishappening.com. Next Thursday, you're showing a film.
Yes.
At Essene Market. Go to truthfreedomprosperity.org, and you can find out details about it. Oddly enough, you're showing a film called Innocence Betrayed.
That's right.
Has anybody here ever heard of this? All right.
This was so synchronistic. I chose the film Innocence Betrayed to show at the next Truth, Freedom, Prosperity documentary screening and discussion evening at Essene Market. The night before, actually, this tragic mass school shooting in Newtown occurred. So it's amazingly synchronistic that I chose to show a film about gun control and what happens historically when gun control legislation is put into place. This film, it's called Innocence Betrayed, and it's made by a group called Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership. And they're a great group of Jewish activists that are attempting to give people a long view of history and attempt to explain to them what invariably happens. A pattern occurs throughout human history, invariably. Almost every single time mass gun control legislation is passed by a government in any culture, any time period in history, anywhere on the earth. And that pattern is very, very disturbing. I know people are clapping because they're very aware. People in this audience are aware and have a long view of history. But we're showing this film perhaps to people who don't have that perspective, that long view of history, because the pattern is every time oppressive gun control legislation goes through in any given country, it is almost invariably followed by a mass genocide of the population in that region of the world, unfortunately. That's why it's so important, hand in hand with the non-aggression principle, that we here understand and attempt to enact and live in our lives on a day-to-day basis. We also need to deeply understand and help other people to deeply understand the principle of the inherent right to self-defense, and why that right should never be ingressed upon, and no one should ever attempt to take it away from a free people. Because it is there, the right to maintain and keep and bear arms is not there so that we can go hunting. It is not there so we can protect ourselves walking in open territory on the streets, in public territory. It is not there principally to defend one's home from intrusion or, thieves. These are reasons for private ownership of weapons, but they are ancillary, they are supportive or secondary reasons. The main primary reason for the private ownership of weaponry is to defend freedom against the encroachments of tyrannical government. And this needs to be understood, and it needs to be spoken to ignorant people who do not understand this natural, inherent right that we all possess.
So, for those of you that have people that are either on the fence or way in the other friggin' yard or in a totally different neighborhood regarding gun control, I mean, this is every documentary screening that's been held that TFP has been hosting, for the most part, the conversations at the end don't typically get heated. It's a very open, welcoming conversation. And look, bring your friends. Really, it's free. You're welcome to donate, but it's free, and you can bring people out, and that's the whole point of it. Because it's one thing to email somebody a video or post a video on a social networking site and hope that people watch it. In your heart, as soon as you hit share, people don't watch it. So it's a good chance to bring people out, get them acquainted with other people that are like-minded, and if anything, just have a good conversation with somebody, and hopefully open their minds. And because believe me, there's a lot of people that believe differently, and I understand that people react with emotions when it comes to a huge tragic event, and it seems like the easiest thing to do is like, all right, well, let's just get rid of this or get rid of that. But you really need to think these things through, especially when we're ready to literally hand power over to a bunch of assholes, a bunch of crooks, psychopaths that are once you hand them that key, it's really tough to get it back. So
that's one of the key factors of mind control. See, a lot of people talk about mind control, but they don't get into heart control. What's being done now against people is heart control. It's a form of emotional mind control. Nothing should be taken away from the tragedy and the pain and suffering that the families are experiencing. All of our hearts should go out to these people who they have been victimized by this horribly tragic and traumatic event. But that's the time that the psychopaths come out and propose their solutions.
Yep.
When they have people in fear and their emotions are all tied up in a knot, and they're ready to hand over their freedom and their rights to anybody who can promise them a modicum of protection and security. We have to be streetwise to this tactic. This is a tactic, it's a dialectic, and it's a dialectic that is preying upon our out-of-control emotional state when a chaotic event occurs. When a chaotic event like this occurs, we need to maintain our composure, look at the big picture, and understand, are people who are authoritarians going to come in and try to seize upon this as an opportunity to take our rights away from us? And indeed, that's exactly what is happening right now as a result of this tragedy. We cannot let that happen. We have to get streetwise to this tactic, help other people to get streetwise to it and understand how it works. And I call it emotional mind control or heart control. And that's just as powerful and important to understand as is mind control.
Absolutely. Well, the best thing to end on is a powerful note, so I think we'll end there. All right. What do you guys think? You think that's good? All right. All right. Mark, we could sit here all night and talk, which we've done millions of times, but just for time purposes, I want to thank you so much, man, for being here.
Mike, thanks so much for having me. This was
Thank
great.
you so much. Please go to whatonearthishappening.com. Just wait for the round of applause to finish. All the links that you need for everything else that Mark does is right there on the site. You can go to truthfreedomprosperity.org, and all the links are there too. So, Mark, I can't thank you enough for everything that you are, all that you do. I looked up to you a lot, and you're the man. That's why you're here.
Thank you, sir.
So appreciate it again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out.